Welcome to the Strange Story Podcast, where we hear, share, and tell true stories of the unexplained. I'm Mark Marinaccio, and each episode of this podcast features a guest, someone you probably know from the world of the unexplained and paranormal. These guests share one of their own experiences with us, their own strange story as it happened to them. Like many of you, I myself am a paranormal enthusiast and experiencer. Now I'm bringing the relationships, contacts, and information that I've gained over the course of my 20 years making paranormal television shows to you. This is the Strange Story Podcast. Today's guest on the show is Chuck Zukowski from Travel Channel's Alien Highway. Chuck is a former El Paso County Sheriff's Deputy and has been investigating UFOs and the paranormal for the last 30 years. And today, he's sharing one of the strangest stories from his adventures. This is the Strange Story Podcast. Hey, Chuck, great to talk to you. Thanks for doing the show. Really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, and thank you to all your listeners out there. I always have a lot of fun doing these. So I'm really excited about talking to you tonight.
Yeah, and I can't wait to hear your strange story. Obviously, I know you have a lot. And obviously you wrapped up and I'll tell you, Alien Highway was a really great show, really great series. I really enjoyed it, and I like that kind of stuff. I really believe that what you are doing, helps move us forward in understanding and learning and experiencing more about these unexplained situations, and specifically with UFOs and aliens and that phenomenon. And, if I have this right, you've been doing this about 30 years, is that right?
Yeah, about 35 years, actually.
Let's get into it. This is the Strange Story Podcast. So, and you were telling me some amazing stories before we got on here. So I really would love to hear your strange story now.
Yeah, and I do have a few of them, but this one kind of relates to, and I can't tell you whether or not it's goes back, to my mom and my aunt. As long as I can remember, I've always had a fascination with the paranormal, ghosts, but more of UFOs. And it wasn't until I had moved 20-some years ago from California to Colorado, going through some old boxes, that I actually saw some old weekly readers and old books that I bought from elementary school that were all UFO related. And I'm going, oh, gosh, I guess I was really interested back then too. So anyway, I've had a fascination with this, and then as it turns out, my mom had an experience, my aunt had experience. Well, here's the strange story. Okay, now generally UFO investigators like myself, we investigate other people's stories, and very rarely will we have our own experience ourselves unless we go to a certain area where it's hot at the time. But what happened was, it was on July 3rd, 2016. My sister Debbie Ziegelmeyer, who was an investigator out of Missouri, we were lecturing together at the Roswell UFO Festival, and July 3rd, I think, was Sunday night, and we were going to fly out the next day. So I always, when I'm with my sister, I'm in Colorado, she's in Missouri. When I get together with her, we usually talk about our equipment, latest equipment, and then if we have an open night, we usually go out late at night and check out our night vision equipment or just star search. So we decided that Sunday night that we were going to go 60 miles or so outside of Roswell to an area where there had been UFO sightings in the past, and I investigated what they call the Roswell Rock, and you could probably look that up and learn all about the Roswell Rock. But so we were in the area where the Roswell Rock was found. So we're on a 2-lane highway. We pull off the side of the 2-lane highway, and we're not that far away from the highway, maybe 40 yards or so, on this little ranch road, and we're looking, I think it was towards the east, and the west is behind us. Now I'm in my pickup truck, and at the time I had a 2016 Ram Rebel, and I had just put these really cool strobe spotlights on the front of my hitch, on the front of the truck. And they had a remote on it, and I was saying, "Hey, check out my new toy! That if we're doing an investigation and we're away from the truck, I can turn the lights on from a remote, with my remote, the spotlights, in case something happens." And I go, "And check this out! They strobe also too." But what happened, and that's what I was going to talk to her about. Well, as soon as we parked and I got out of the truck, I went to go pull the tailgate down. I noticed this really, really bright flash in the sky off to the right. And I think it was in the west. And I live in Colorado, and a lot of times, we see shooting stars coming in, and sometimes they come right towards you, and it's just a bright flash. You don't see a tail. So I just assumed that really bright flash was something that I'd seen before, a shooting star coming at me. And I told my sister, I go, "Did you see that bright flash up there?" And she goes, "No." And I said, "Well, it's a new moon night. There's no clouds, brilliant stars. We can see the Milky Way. Maybe we'll see some satellites and all kinds of stuff." So we're pretty excited about that. So we walked over to the right side of my truck, the passenger side of the truck. And that's when I told her, I said, "Hey, check out my strobe lights." And I had my remote control, and I flash the strobe lights, and they go flash, 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 flash. And immediately after that, about 45 degrees off to my left, pointing in the west direction, this bright flash comes out of the sky. It's 45 degrees off the horizon, and it's so bright. It's as bright as Jupiter or Venus when it's at its brightest. But it's not, it's about a little bit larger too than what Jupiter and Venus looks like, but not as large as the moon, obviously, but it's as bright. And it was really, really bright, these two flashes. And it caught our attention, and I said, "Well, what the heck is that?" And my sister's looking at it, she goes, "I don't know." And we have our binoculars there, and I'm looking, and I can't see anything in the sky. And I have night vision, night owl binoculars, and I'd be able to see anything out there. And she goes, "Flash your lights again." So I took my remote and I flashed the lights again with that strobe flash, 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 and immediately after that, I got two more bright flashes up in the sky, same place, and my heart just started beating. And I'm going, "What in the hell is going on?" You have to understand, as a UFO investigator, we investigate other people's sightings. They tell us about this stuff, but to have it happen to you, and I'm very analytical, being a design engineer, and I'm trying to figure this out. Okay, what can it be? I'm trying to figure out based on my other investigations, balls of light and all kinds of stuff. But man, I've never seen this actually happen to me like this. I've filmed other balls of light flashes in the past, but nothing that was communicating directly with me in the flashes from my truck. So I told my sister, I said, "Let's wait a couple of minutes, just in case it's a strobe out there or something we're missing, or maybe a drone with a strobe or something like that. But let's just wait a few minutes, and so we'll be out of that sequence, that's strobe sequence." And it must have been 4 or 5 minutes, and then I hit it again, my lights, and immediately after that, two bright flashes. And I said, "Oh no, this is no." And then I ran to the back of the truck and I grabbed more gear out, and other cameras, and we're trying to set it up and trying to figure out what's going out there. We saw absolutely nothing out there. And we figured, okay, what the heck is going on? We just communicated with this light up in the sky, new moon night, stars everywhere, Milky Way, no clouds. And it was so bright that if there was a craft out there, we should have seen a craft, the size of craft. Well, I can later on explain why we didn't, but something was out there communicating with us. And then I got thinking, okay, as soon as I got out of my truck when we first pulled up and I saw the bright flash behind me, maybe that wasn't a shooting star coming in. Maybe that was the beginning of this event. Like, "Hey, we're here. Hey, check us out. We're here watching you." And it wasn't until I flashed my lights that it came back and communicated with me. And so you have to understand, I'm all hyped up, and my sister, she's trying to figure out what's going on. She's got her camera up there. We're panning the skies and stuff, trying to figure out what's going on. And it was a few minutes later that, now at the time, let me explain real quick that my 2016 Ram, it had the option where if you touch the handle and you have your key fob in your pocket, if you touch the handle, the lights come on inside the truck. Okay, and that's just the capacitance and resistance from your hand touching the handle, and anyway, and so that's no big deal. But the thing was the truck was completely dark at the time. My sister and I walked away from the truck, and we we're good maybe 20, 30 feet away from the truck in a darker area, kind of panning the area in the skies and kind of checking things out. And all of a sudden, coyotes, it just started just howling and making all this noise, and it kind of lit up that whole area. It wasn't coming from one direction. They were howling everywhere. So okay, so maybe they were communicating with each other, but it was just started. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of normal. I live in Colorado. I hear that sometimes. And then the cows started mooing and bailing, and all of a sudden they were making all kinds of noise. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe coyotes are going after these cows. But then other cows started making noise at another ranch off at a distance. I'm going, okay, now that's unusual. Usually it's only one ranch, because I'm a cattle mutilation investigator also for about 20 years. So I have an idea of how cows react. And then I started hearing cows everywhere making noise, and the coyotes making noise. And then within a couple seconds, it all stopped. And it was just dead silence. And I'm looking at my sister. I'm going, okay, what's going on? And now the hair on my, and I don't have a lot of hair on my arms, but what hair I do have on my arms, it started to lift up. And I kind of felt this kind of eerie feeling, okay? And it like this energy. And all of a sudden, the lights in my truck came on. And I'm going, oh, holy shit. That can't happen. We're 20 feet away from the truck. You have to touch the truck with your hand to be able to get the lights in. I have to have a key fob to do that. They came on by themselves. And I'm thinking, oh, first thing my sister said, did somebody touch the truck? I'm going, well, it doesn't matter because I have a key fob. So, but there's something going on. Like there's high electromagnetic energy that I could feel. And then it caused the lights in the truck to come on. And it must have started a little bit before, because it got the animals going. So now we're like going, okay, something's flying over, something's near us, something's going on. And so we hung right where we were with our cameras, and we stayed away from the truck, just trying to, okay, let's see what's going on, what's going to happen next. And a couple of minutes later, and this highway, there was nobody on this highway because, well, it started about 9:30 p.m. is when this started happening. So it was around 10 o'clock or so. And this vehicle, and it passed us, and it was just off in a distance a bit. Now, I tell you what, this is exactly what happened. And I don't know what we were thinking, but it passed us real slow. And now, okay, that's granted, we're out there in the middle of nowhere by other ranches. It could be a rancher out there. And that's what I thought, kind of checking up on it, saying, hey, who are these people out here? And that happens all the time. But it came by real slow, and I looked at it, and I looked right at it. It's a vehicle off a distance, and it went down, and it turned to the next ranch road and went down the ranch road and stopped there. And I turned to my sister. I said, did you see that truck? I go, it's got to be a rancher checking us out, saying, well, we're out here. I don't know. She goes, that's not a truck. That's a car. I'm going, no, that's a truck. I saw a truck. She goes, no, that's a 4-door sedan. That's what she saw. I'm going, bullshit. That's a truck. I know what a truck is. I have a truck, And I grabbed my binoculars. I swung over, and I looked at the vehicle, and it was a 4-door sedan. And I'm looking at the vehicle was far enough away that I really couldn't see a lot of detail, but I could see there was a vehicle. It was a sedan, a 4-door sedan, and the door opened up. There was no light when the door opened up, because if there was, I would have saw that by night vision binoculars. So the door opened up, and the figure came out of the door and just stood there, way off a distance, and just watched us. And I'm looking at my sister now. Okay, wait a minute. I saw a truck. You saw a sedan. When you told me it was a sedan, I looked at it through my binoculars. It was a sedan. Why? Why did I even see a truck in the first place? I don't understand that. Was I just daydreaming or what? I don't know. And so I'm trying to figure all this out. Now I got somebody out there watching us. Now, when I go on these investigations, I'll either have a 380 a Ruger, holstered inside with a concealed carry permit, because I used to be a cop, and or I'll carry a 45 or 40 caliber. At the time, I was carrying a 40 caliber on my hip. And so I'm going, well, I don't know what's going on here, but all these events, they really don't pertain to something human. They pertain to something else. And if this guy now that's watching us, or this figure that's watching us, I don't know, is he just a rancher that I originally thought it was in a truck is now a sedan, or is it somebody else watching us? Now, my sister at the time, she's a little bit of an intuitive. And I'm very analytical, and I always say I'm a little bit rock and roll. She's a little bit country, and that's pretty much how it usually works when we work together. But she's an intuitive, not so much a psychic, but she can pick up on things. And all of a sudden, she kind of looked at me. She goes, "We got to get out of here right now. We just got to roll. We got to get the hell out of this place right now, because I don't think if we don't leave now, we may not leave at all." And when my sister's a little older than me, and when my sister says we got to roll, I listen to her. I go, "We rolled." I go, "Okay, it's time to go." And so we just packed our stuff. We didn't even pack it. We just threw it in the back of the truck and just closed the tailgate, and off we went. And it was kind of interesting. We talked about it. We stayed up that whole night, at outside our rooms in the motel we were staying, talking about it, trying to figure out what happened. And my sister seems to think that when we first pulled up, the light may have followed us at one point. And I don't know if the light or whatever it was knew who we were or what, but it wanted to initiate a communication with us. Now, we were in an area where the Roswell Rock was found and where other UFO sightings had been seen. So if there's something there communicating with us, and let's say someone within the government is monitoring an active area, and I can tell you right now, I can tell your listeners right now, I've done this long enough that everywhere there's a lot of UFO activity, I can guarantee you there's a Skunk Works facility nearby, and I can't tell you exact location of a few of them, but I've learned over the years where there's a lot of UFO activity, you're going to have, Skinwalker Ranch, Brashaw Ranch, other places like that. There's military activity there. They're watching what's going on there. So was this military or was this something else? Of the person that was watching us, I was kind of curious, okay, why is that interested in with us? Why are they communicating with us? And it's one of these things even now, and this was, 2016, July 3rd, and now we're 2019. And as I tell you this story, I'm still going through it in my mind, not believing exactly what happened to me, but this was direct communication. And the problem that I have with me it kind of like didn't come to a conclusion. Right. Maybe if, I was kind of hoping, okay, we stood our ground. Now, you watch these shows on TV, and I don't know if anybody's out there watched Alien Highway. Sure, sometimes you kind of muck things up a little bit for TV and stuff. But, as a UFO investigator, I've been quoted on the local newspapers as I'm one of the very few people that run towards something that most people are running away from. Well, that's what investigators do. You see these ghost investigators all the time on TV, and they're going, "Oh my God, I'm scared," and they run away. Well, you're not a ghost investigator. That's not what ghost investigators do. You're there trying to investigate that incident. And so we stayed, we tried to investigate, and we held our ground to try and figure out what's going to happen next. Are we going to see something else? Are we going to see entities? What are we going to see? And it wasn't until after that vehicle came in that I thought was a truck, and my sister said it was a sedan. It turned out to be one. That kind of flipped things on us. So now we had another addition to this event that we may not be able to deal with. So
you mentioned. First of all, I think it's a really compelling story because, the idea of contact, right? The idea not just that you see some lights in the sky and then they're gone and you can't hear it, but the fact that you were able to flash and then, send out a question, receive an answer, right? So flash and then get a flash back. That's really interesting. And given the fact you've been doing this 35 years, I'm sure you've thought first about, is this civilian? Is this military? Is there a craft? Is it a drone? That kind of thing. So what are the reasons that it's not those things? What makes you believe it's otherworldly, even if it's not? I mean, we can get into all that, but, what makes you think it's not something that's, like I said, military craft?
Well, that's a very good question. Well, the first thing was, and that's what I thought at first. When it first happened, that's why I grabbed my binoculars. I'm thinking, okay, helicopter, drone. I have a drone. I have a DJI Phantom 4, and they strobe. Now, granted, they have the regular strobe lights like an airplane does, but they strobe all the time. Now, yeah, you could modify them where it doesn't strobe, and yeah, you can modify something and put a light on it to just to mess with people. But we heard nothing out there, especially when it was dead silence. So we heard no engine noise. It was stationary. It stayed in the same location. It wasn't moving back. The only time it moved was when I first showed up. It moved from behind us to the front of us, which is kind of interesting because we started facing forward. At the time, I opened the tailgate up and I was facing towards, the west. And then as we walked towards the front of the vehicle, now we're facing towards the east, and it happened in front of us. So that's kind of weird too. So that's the first thing you think of. Okay, it's a drone and you're looking for it, but we didn't hear anything. We didn't see anything. So that kind of military. Now I can tell you there could be some high tech stuff out there that we have that could have done that, and you always have to leave that open, as a possibility. Especially when you're an investigator, you just can't say it's 100% alien. But when you start looking at all the events, and this has happened to me before, where I've done investigations and you have high EM fields. It's a very high electromagnetic field. And that's why, I started carrying a tri-field EMF meter way before ghost investigators ever used to do it.
Sure.
Yeah, because matter of fact, on Alien Highway, we were investigating this round anomaly on the ground, and it happened a year or so ago, and it still had a high EM field that I was picking up on my tri-field, and actually reset a $70,000 red camera. Reset it right there. Never happened before to the cameraman. So you have this, and I've been in situations where the car batteries have died, and our batteries and our cameras have died of these high EM fields. So we had a high EM field there, and the field was so high that it actually turned the lights on inside my truck. It activated the lights inside my truck, which was, I tried to recreate using artificial energy, television degaussers and stuff. I couldn't do it. And then you had the cows and the coyotes, and not just one ranch, but everything was lighting up. And then after that, just within a couple of seconds, they all stopped. Everything stopped. And that's when the energy started happening. And so you put all that together and you're thinking, okay, if it was a military drone or something else out there, what caused the high EM field? What caused the lights to go on? So something was in that area that activated all this other stuff happening at once. Generally, when you do Bigfoot investigations, if a Bigfoot's in the area or something, animals will react to that. And so I've learned that in the past too, because I've done some Bigfoot investigations. But when you get in a situation like this, and that happened also in Marley Woods, Missouri. And I actually captured this. It's on my YouTube, UFO Nut YouTube. This little ball of light pops up off the distance over the Marley Woods. But right before the light popped up, this has been going on for generations, the ranchers know ahead of time because all the animals started making all this noise.
Right.
And then they stop, and then the light pops up. And so because of my previous investigations and stuff, and you're putting all this together, that's why I come to the conclusion that, it's an anomaly. It wasn't man-made. It was something else. Now, I can tell you also from my investigations that these balls of light, it's really cool. It's really interesting. They could be the size of a golf ball, yet glow the size of a Volkswagen. It's hard to understand, but it's kind of weird how this kind of works, because you're looking at technology that we're not accustomed to. Most of the balls of light that people see may be the size, I call them balls of light, not orbs, because they're very mechanical. They're mechanical probes, and they give off this really unusual light. And we can go a whole hour on my theory on all that, but they give off this very unusual light that, as they're either communicating or they're testing the area for whatever they're doing, the light will either get brighter and bigger or smaller. And I've actually seen pictures of a ball of light being the size of a golf ball and then being the size of a large vehicle. But the thing is when you see these balls of light in the sky, think of them average, or maybe the size of a softball to a volleyball or a basketball, that they may not be that far off. They may not be 2 miles out. They may only be 200 yards out. But because at nighttime we have this loss of perception, of distance right at night, and so you may see something you think is further away, and it's actually a lot closer. So this light that we were seeing, we theorized was a lot closer than we thought it was. Like, real
What do you
close.
think it was? I mean, what's your, again, you've been doing this for 35 years. You've had many experiences. You have this experience. What do you think you were looking at?
I actually think it was a ball of light. I think is what I've seen and photographed before is these are they're mechanical probes, and we get ranchers.
Explain that. What do you mean by that?
Okay, how we send probes out to other planets, and Voyager 1 and 2
Yep.
and stuff. Well, that's what these things are, and I actually saw a picture of one once that somebody had. But basically, just picture about the size of a softball to a volleyball, very mechanical, and they just float around. I mean, they defy gravity as we know it. They defy physics as we know it. And what they're doing, as far as I theorize, is they're doing analysis, testing of whatever. They're doing their own research, and sort of like we would send a probe out to Mars, and to land on Mars or even go around Mars and samples. And so they're sampling, they're doing their own type of lab analysis for whatever reason. And then when it comes to communicating, sometimes they'll actually communicate with us, and in which would happen to me. And maybe that's some type of a learning thing. I have no idea. To think like an alien, you have to be an alien. So it's really hard to theorize exactly what these things are. But whatever they're doing, they're actually out there analyzing the environment, analyzing us, for whatever purposes, other reasons. And we see a lot of them near animal mutilation. Sometimes, a lot of my cases, the ranchers will see balls of light a week to a couple months before, in the area where before the mutilation occurs. So there's an association with balls of light and animal mutilations too, based on my personal investigations. These balls of light also are seen around water sources. And so a lot of times they'll be near a water source, a river, a lake, creek, or even water troughs in some cases. So there's a connection between water sources and these balls of light. Now here's something, and you're not going to believe me, but this is all I can tell you. All I can tell you is this is what I've learned. This is what I've seen. This is what I've investigated. And I'm not trying to say, believe me or not, please don't, research it yourself or whatever, but the lights do not reflect shadows. Now, this is really interesting. We can go into this on another show if you want, but the light that people see that are true UFOs, as bright as they are, you can stare right into the light and you won't flinch. You won't glare. You can stare right into the light, and you can look at it, and it's bright, 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 and you won't even squint your eyes. You'll just look right into it. It won't affect you. If it's close enough to the ground, it won't cast a shadow on the ground. If it's close to a person, it won't light up the person. I have a photograph. Unfortunately, I can't share it with you because it's a minor and I don't have approval, but it's an investigation I've been working on where this minor, young teen, is standing in front of a ball of light in an area where there was cattle mutilations, and it's right there in front of him, and it doesn't light up his shirt, his abdominal section, nothing. 2000, Highland, Illinois, there was a large craft, a triangular craft that skated through that area, and 4 different police districts chased it. Now, this large triangle, size of 1.5 football fields to 2 football fields based on who you talk to. It sat there, floated, and then it skipped a quarter mile. It didn't travel a quarter mile, but it skipped, and it floated there again. 4 different police districts chased it. I interviewed one of the police officers, and he thought at the time that it could be us, or our technology, more than it was alien technology, until I interviewed him. I interviewed him near the area where he saw the craft hovering over a convenience store. And I said, how far was it over the convenience store? He goes, oh, it wasn't that high, maybe a couple 100 feet above, but it was large and it was so bright. And I'm going, yeah, how bright? He goes, the lights on the outside, and you were staring right at it. You didn't have a problem looking at it. He goes, no, I can see right into the lights. There's no problem. I go, okay. So it was bright, 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 but not too bright that you flinched. I go, no. I said, so it was that bright. Did it cast any shadows on the ground? He goes, well, I really didn't think about that at the time. I said, how about your patrol car? Your patrol car's got reflected decals everywhere. Did it light up your patrol car like normal headlights do? And he paused for a second and he goes, oh my God, it didn't. That's when he realized that it was and I didn't mean to, but at that point I switched him from maybe a possible 60-40 to now, an 80-20 that it's more alien than not. And and I tell you, well, due to my investigations, that's exactly what I've seen in the past and interviewed people in the past, that the light we we're seeing isn't conventional white light. I don't know what part of the color spectrum. It's not part of the color spectrum that we're familiar with, but we see it as white light. Our cameras see it as white light, but it doesn't react like white light. Those are the true UFOs. If you talk to someone who said, yeah, this thing was so bright, I couldn't look at it, then I know that, maybe it's reverse engineered, maybe it's one of ours or something, but that's not something that's, a true, falls in that category of a UFO or extraterrestrial. So anyway, the light that we saw July 3rd, it was really bright. But then again, too, I can stare at Venus and Jupiter, and I don't have to squinch. But it was that bright. But it never got close enough, to see whether or not it cast any shadows. But it was everything else that happened around that: the high EM field, the animals, and then the vehicle pulling by, and the shadow figure type of guy staying off at a distance by himself, just kind of watching us, and it's kind of cool. Makes for a good story, huh?
So it certainly does, and you've got a lot of them. But what are you doing now? Like, what's got you excited? What's your pursuit now? And with the show not continuing, I mean, sure, that doesn't mean you're not investigating. What are you looking forward to now?
Well, that's a really good question. I just bought a new camera. I bought a nice little Canon XA11, okay. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of mimicking one of the cameras that the production crew had, but more within my my budget. So I'm stepping it up a little bit on some of my investigations. I got an investigation coming up. Actually, it's an evergreen cemetery out here that they've had some sightings. So I'm going to try and get out there with my daughter. I'm starting to, my daughter's been with me on a few investigations, so it's going to be more like a father-daughter type of thing now. Okay. Where I'm going to start training her. And then within a couple of weeks to 3 weeks, hopefully, we'll start posting some 3.5-4-minute videos on my website, ufonut.com, of our investigations. And so that's one. And then we had a Bigfoot sighting not too far away from us near Pikes Peak. And so we're going to hit that area, go out there at night. Then we had balls of light sighting over by 11 Mile, which is an 11-mile reservoir over by Florence, Colorado. We're going to hit up there too. And what's so cool about this is as we get closer and we're closer into the winter, the night skies become brighter because it's colder. At least it is in Colorado. And during the summertime, when you're out there at night, you get that haze, you get the heat coming up. It kind of mucks up the sky a little bit. But when you get up high in elevation, you can see everything. Sort of like when you get away from Roswell and you're out, out in the desert, you can see everything. So I'm kind of excited. Most people don't like the winter coming up, but I love the winter because that means Bigfoot sightings, and some more sky watches, and now they got a camera that shoots the night vision. I stepped up my gear a little bit to see what if I can pick up any other anomalies, and I'll just post it, and maybe down the road another production company will come by and say, hey, we could use you to do this or that, but that's not going to stop me from doing what I've normally been doing anyway. So I just keep trucking.
Well, Chuck, this has been great. Thank you so much. And for anyone listening, if you want to find out more about Chuck, you can go to ufonut.com. Is that right?
Yeah, or just Google Chuck Zukowski, Zukowski, and I light up everywhere.
All right, Chuck, great talking to you. Let's talk again soon.
All right, thank you.